Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chad and Sam Show. I'm Sam Mullen here with Chad Sharn. We're going to be finishing up our baseball preview as we break down the NLS, and then we're going to be getting into our postseason awards as well as our postseason coverage, where we're going to be going through what we see out of each round of the playoffs and picking eventually our World Series champion. Chad, how excited are you about this one?
It's gonna be great. Pretty excited. Playoffs, no matter what league we're talking about, is an exciting time of year. Baseball just has that little extra personal appeal to me. So we can't get there unless we begin. So let's go to Colorado where we start.
All right, how about it? Colorado, they're coming off a year that, they're looking to bounce back. They really just. It's sad for me to have to go through a time where I have to watch Colorado not have Todd Helton. Todd Helton has been with Colorado every year that I've really watched baseball. And fun fact for everyone, Todd Helton was the starting quarterback over Peyton Manning at Tennessee in the 90s. I just like to mention that. That's why I love Todd Helton, because he was that awesome. But let's talk some baseball with this. The life without Todd Helton is always going to be a sad thing. Because he has been, you like to talk about face of franchises. That was Todd Helton. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I mean, he had a 17-year career, and all 17 years were with the Colorado Rockies. It's just the same situation as Chipper Jones when he left at the Atlanta Braves. Was you have someone who spent his whole entire career here with his franchise, and now he's gone. So it's the next chapter with the Rockies, and they have some bright prospects in their system. Kent Mathis is an outfielder, I believe, in AAA right now, graduate from University of Alabama. But you had some subtractions this past offseason in starting pitcher Drew Pomeranz and their key center fielder Dexter Fowler. How are they going to bounce back from losing Dexter Fowler? And given their additions, are they good enough to expect an increase in wins for the Rockies?
Well, I mean, I think one thing that we do want to talk about, since we're saying this is life without Todd Helton has officially begun, they did bring in a former MVP, Justin Morneau. Spent some of last season with the Twins, and then he split time with a midseason trade going to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So this will be his first full season in the National League, as long as he is not traded as he was with Minnesota. They also, you talked about the loss of Dexter Fowler. In that, they did get Jason Lyles, who could be maybe a starting pitcher for them, who could be a very good starting pitcher for them at some point. Brett Anderson they got from Oakland. When healthy, can be a very, very good pitcher. Health has been a huge factor for him. And then, just because I am a Reds fan, I do notice it. Drew Stubbs is coming to town. Maybe he's going to be that replacement for Dexter Fowler. Maybe we'll see him get some time out in center field. In the end, I think this team still has some very, very good talent when it comes to their offense. We talk about Troy Tulowitzki, who is arguably the best offensive player at shortstop in Major League Baseball. And Carlos Gonzalez is being looked at as potentially an MVP candidate this year if the Rockies can get into the playoff picture. Carlos Gonzalez has a lot of talent. You look back at Joey Votto's MVP year, it was Carlos Gonzalez, Joey Votto, and Albert Pujols competing for that award straight through the end. There really wasn't anyone else close. So they do have the talent offensively. Can their pitching really hold up is going to be the question.
When you talk about offense, Josh Rutledge came in and played really well for them last year. They hope that he continues and he improves this upcoming year. What can you expect from him along with your stars in Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki? These are players. They have a lot of lower key players that we're going to have to keep an eye on because those stars are moving on. We're so used to focusing, talking about the Colorado Rockies, the first thing that comes up to mind, Todd Helton. Well, he's gone. So now you're kind of spreading your knowledge of these players in Coors Field, and you're realizing, wow, we have more talent than we had more talent than just Todd Helton. And these are our guys. This is the Rockies of 2014. What can they do for us? What can we expect out of them?
An underrated pickup that they've had for the last couple of years was Michael Kadire. He played absolutely fantastic for them last year, and maybe age will start to catch up with him. I hope not, because he's just been a lot of fun to watch in Colorado. If they are able to keep this kind of mojo going with the offense, their pitching staff comes back. This could be a fun team to watch. In the end, though, we're looking at a team that hasn't been up to their true standards for the last couple of years. You look at 2012, 64 and 98. That was good for fifth in the division. 2013, they did improve, but they were still 74 and 88. Also good for fifth in the division. The question is, are they ready to take a step back up toward the level they were when they were a World Series runner-up in 2007? Personally, I don't see them being anywhere near that point yet. But if they can put these prospects together and maybe get an improved pitching staff, they could be on their way. I have them going with the same record as they did last year, 74 and 88. Just give them a few more years before they're back into the division title picture.
Yeah, in 2012 they finished 64 and 98. 2013 they finished, like you said, 74 and 88. I see them doing a little bit better, picking up a couple extra wins, 77 and 85. They're just not there yet to make that next big step, and they'll find themselves towards the bottom of the NL West.
All right, next we're moving on to the San Francisco Giants, who, what can you say about this team? It's a big question mark to me when, we talk about a team that was a World Series champion in 2012, and they follow that up with kind of in my mind, a dismal year. You still have a great starting rotation. You look at Bumgarner, Zito had a decent year. Kane is still going to be one of the best starting pitchers in baseball. Vogelsong is solid. They have the starting rotation, especially if Lincecum comes back to what he was. Can they bring back that momentum they had in the playoffs in 2012 with guys like Buster Posey, with the Kung Fu Panda Pablo Sandoval, who's not looking too much like a panda anymore. Looks pretty good to me. If that's a panda, I want to look like a panda. If they can get that back, this could be another strong year for them.
Exactly. It is a matter of what team do we see. Does the panda still have power? He shed weight. You got to wonder if he shed too much weight where his body isn't used to the light swinging, in that he may have a quicker swing that might increase strikeouts, or does he have that timing still down where he can make contact more? And how much power does he have now that he is, I believe I heard, 40 pounds lighter, which is a lot. So now you got to get your new body readjusted to that swing. You got to get the timing down, a lot. It's great to see people lose weight, but it affects a lot too. Will he be able to get all this stuff down in time for the season?
I think one thing I'm looking for this season is improvement from a guy like Brandon Belt, who is really not known as a power hitter by any stretch of the imagination. He's definitely a contact guy, but I think what could this be a really big breakout year for him? That's something that the Giants fans are definitely hoping to see if they want to make a run at this division title. Can Brandon Crawford be a better hitting shortstop, because he's really only known for his defense? They have some points there they could really improve that could be drastic for them. The one thing that we have to mention is the additions. They brought in Tim Hudson. Tim Hudson has been a mainstay of the Braves rotation for quite a few years now, and they were able to get him out of Atlanta and bring him to San Francisco, across the bay from where he started in Oakland. And if he can be the Tim Hudson of old, this could be another dangerous rotation. If their offense produces, which maybe an addition like Michael Morse can help with that, if this offense produces, we may not see that Jekyll and Hyde that we saw last year. We may see a team with a lot more consistency.
I mean, I think Tim Hudson is a great addition to that rotation. You know, what will Tim Lincecum do? When you have a closer like Sergio Romo, who gives you pretty consistent great outings that you feel comfortable and confident putting him in there and him doing his job, you know, you got to focus on the rotation. And I think that they helped themselves a lot by getting Tim Hudson. You know, 2012, they finished. This is where the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde comes into play. 2012, they finished 94-68, finishing first in the division.
And they had a World Series championship that year.
And a World Series championship. But then you look to 2013. This is not the way a World Series championship winning team should be playing. They finished tied for third in the division with a 76-86 record. Now a lot of Giants fans must have been wondering, where was the team that just last year won the World Series championship? How can you go from almost 30 games over 500 to 10 games under 500? That's a 40-game swing. And they were at a loss of words. But when it comes to 2014, they're not going to do another 30-game swing. I see them digressing a little. You know, only going 74-88, losing 2 more games. I just don't. I feel like their moves are good, but I think there's going to be some intangibles that will need to be solved in order for this team to make any type of significant move forward.
I think this offense, like you, I think this offense just isn't where it needs to be. This pitching staff is going to be good as always, but I also look at this division that they're in where they have a lot. There's a lot of talent in this division. You look at, like we already saying, the Rockies are going to improve, but you look at, you know, the Dodgers continue to have one of the best teams in terms of talent in baseball. The Diamondbacks look like they're making a push. The Padres look like they're making a push. This is a division filled with talent, and because of that, I think they're going 72-90. And that's not a shot at the Giants for just not being very good. That's just a lot of that, I think, is just based on how good everyone else is around them. And in the end, it's going to hurt them. Now let's go ahead and move south in the state. We're going to the San Diego Padres, who were tied with the Giants last year in the division. They made some really big moves in terms of their pitching staff this offseason.
Yeah, they acquired closing pitcher Joaquin Benoit, and someone that the move I like the most made by the Padres this offseason is a move that many people might think is a gamble. In going out and getting Josh Johnson, starting pitcher Josh Johnson. Here's the thing. Low risk, high reward. Only signed him to a 1-year, only $8 million deal. That's pretty cheap for a starting pitcher, one that used to be considered probably on the higher end of the starting pitchers in the league. He's been struggling as of late, but which Josh Johnson do the Padres get? I think the Padres, as well as I, hope that they get the better Josh Johnson, obviously. You hope that this is a Johnny Gomes-esque story where you give him or a Marlon Byrd story where you give him this cheap deal and he produces greater than you even could have expected. So,
I mean, I think some people would say $1 million or 1 year, $8 million is not cheap. I'd certainly like to get paid $8 million a year to do what I'm doing, but, you know, one can dream. I think considering the fact that he was, considered a Cy Young Award candidate season in, season out, when healthy, that is a relatively cheap deal for what they're hoping to get. And, if the Josh Johnson of the Miami Marlins, although I think more the Florida Marlins, if they get that Josh Johnson, this could be a scary team because Chase Headley, I guarantee, is not going to struggle like he did last year. They do have talent on this team, and they do pitch they do play in a pitchers friendly ballpark. So if they have a strong pitching staff, which is what they seem to be looking toward, then they, in my mind, are setting themselves up for success, considering the fact that they play 81 games in Petco Park.
I mean, exactly. I think that this is definitely going to be a team to watch, especially with the acquisition of Josh Johnson. I can only imagine improvements coming from Yasmani Grandal as well as Yonder Alonso. You know, you have a lot of young players. They have a young team in San Diego, and I think they're going to be growing together. And I think that they'll be taking a step forward this year. In 2012, you saw them finish fourth in the division, 76 and 86. 2013, same record, different place, tied for third. I see them taking a step forward, a medium step. I see them finishing with a record of 83 and 79. I think they're going to go above the 500 plateau. They're going to get a winning record. There's still some things that they need to work out. It's just natural progression of these young players, and with more experience, they'll produce better, as will the team.
Well, you mentioned Yonder Alonso and Yasmani Grandal, and these are two guys that were suspended for PED usage. And let's not forget, I believe Everth Cabrera was another guy that had some PED issues, or maybe at least some sort of substance abuse. Because of that, hopefully for them, that's in the past. And they'll be able to look toward the future with, as you said, some young guys, and definitely look for that improvement. I have them going 81-81. They're just going to hit right at that 500 plateau in my mind. But this is a team with experience now, in their kind of looking toward the future. They'll have that experience in my mind. They'll definitely have a chance to improve year in and year out, and maybe even make the playoffs in the next 4 to 5 years. Now we're going to go ahead and jump over to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who have had a fairly busy offseason. A lot of different things happening for them. They lose one of their offensive pieces, and a guy like Jason Kubel. Heath Bell's gone, which may be good for them because he did not do well for them last year. But they brought in what could be some really nice pieces for their roster, looking at Bronson Arroyo, who was a mainstay on the Reds pitching staff for quite a few years. And if he can at least give them 7 innings for over 32 games, that's important to them. And then Mark Trumbo. This is probably, in my mind, the biggest move of the offseason for not just this team, but maybe the entire division outside of Josh Johnson. At least on the offensive side of things, I think Mark Trumbo is going to be huge for them this year as he gets out of L.A., where he really didn't have necessarily a place where they felt comfortable playing him. Now they're going to trust that he can play in a corner outfield position for 150 to 160 games and put up the power numbers that he has in the past for the Los Angeles Angels. I mean, Chet, I guess the question is, we look at some of the big news of the offseason for Arizona is the loss of Patrick Corbin. Can you give us a little background on that?
I mean, he recently injured his UCL. It sounds like it's the first time ever he's been injured. He didn't really realize that he injured his UCL. They're saying he may possibly need Tommy John surgery, and that's a huge blow to their starting rotation. He went 14-8 last year with 178 strikeouts and a 3.41 ERA. He's a young player who has, made 32 starts last year. He's 24. When you have a young team already and you lose one of your young faces, that hurts. And, it puts more pressure on these new acquisitions like Bronson Arroyo, players who were originally brought in to possibly take over that number 5 role. Now, if that's the case, when you have someone hurt above in the rotation, he may be moved up, and as a result, may be facing better quality pitchers in these matchups. And how is it gonna help or hurt players like Bronson Arroyo?
Hopefully, because being a Reds fan, I'd like to see Bronson Arroyo do well. Hopefully, this will not affect him. I think his psyche is strong enough that he's not going to feel that insane amount of pressure that could be brought on to a younger player if they were thrown into the fire like this. But I think Bronson Arroyo is happy to do whatever he can to help a team succeed, and he's the right guy to maybe fill in for Patrick Corbin just because he does have that veteran savvy to him.
I definitely agree. It's gonna be interesting. Arizona has been a team that over the past couple of years that you haven't really seen any improvement, or you haven't seen any decline. 2000 them going at 500 at 81 and 81 both in 2012 and 2013. 2014, based on what they've done this offseason, I can't help but think they're going to improve. How much they improve is up to them and how well they produce. I see them going 86 and 76. What about you?
This loss of Corbin definitely hurts them. When we kind of were making these predictions, that was not something that we were prepared to factor in. But there's something about this team that I absolutely love, and it's hard to explain because I can't even tell you what it is. There's just something that I just feel about this team really having a big year this year, and they could be. The fact is they do have a lot of really nice pieces in like Miguel Montero, Aaron Hill, and I think most importantly to mention is Paul Goldschmidt. He put up huge numbers for them last year, especially in that RBI category. They didn't end the year very well, but they were in the race for the majority of the season, and it'd be nice to see them make that next step, and I think this is the year it's going to happen. Don't ask me why. I just think it's going to be a big year for them. I have them going 89 and 73, making a jump into the playoffs, and hopefully, for their sake, maybe they'll have a nice run to potentially a World Series championship.
I mean, they're going to be a strong team, but another strong team. We're going to head over to formerly known Mannywood and go visit the Dodgers. They've made some moves over the past offseason, but how much of an impact are they going to have? They brought in starting pitcher Paul Maholm, infielder Justin Turner, Sean Figgins trying to make a comeback. How much impact can he have on this comeback trail? Catcher Miguel Olivo has always put up solid production, not a star, but done his job. And then Dan Herron.
Dan Herron could be a wild card factor for this because did not have a very good year last year in Washington, but he has absolute dynamite stuff and can really be. I don't even know if I want to say 1-2 punch because they already have Zach Greinke and Clayton Kershaw, but you add him into the mix. Maholm is good. In the end, I think their roster improved from last season because Mark Ellis is a loss. He's getting older. Well, you bring in Justin Turner, a little bit more of a youth movement to potentially get some time at second base. Or maybe you decide, hey, D. Gordon, why don't you play second base, and we'll have Hanley Ramirez play shortstop. And if they add Sean Figgins in the mix, we're talking about one of the fastest teams in baseball. It could be scary good. And then, we talk about the starting rotation. They lose Aaron Harang and Ricky Nolasco. Big whoop. Let's bring in Paul Maholm and Dan Herron, and hopefully Dan Herron. And I think they feel more confident than just a hopefully. And they see Dan Herron being the Dan Herron of old. And the Dodgers have a really, really nice roster. If Matt Kemp is healthy, Andre Ethier is healthy, if they get nice production out of maybe A.J. Ellis at catcher, there's some really nice pieces they can put together. Hanley Ramirez, if he can have another season hitting 300, yeah, I mean, it's just they have a lot of really nice guys on this team. But I mean, you talk about this whole formerly known as Manny Wood. Well, they have a different guy that's kind of being that Manny Wood. That's having the little Manny Wood style, and that's Yasiel Puig. And the question is he going to be the dominant player he was in the middle of the summer last year? Because toward the end of the season, he started to trail off some. And that affected his Rookie of the Year race. He had it in the bag. And Fernandez comes in and steals it away from him because Puig finished the year on a very, very poor note. And what I look to is not just his production on the field, but dealing with his antics, because they can be tiresome at times. And he's having some off-the-field issues in terms of getting arrested for speeding. You've got to handle yourself as a consummate professional, and I just am struggling to see Yasiel Puig doing so.
Exactly. I mean, I can't imagine what Mattingly has to deal with being the manager of the Dodgers, not just holding that reputation, being the Dodgers manager, but having to deal with Puig and the constant antics that surrounded them last year. How is he going to handle it this year? How is he going to establish himself in the classroom, and put his foot down and say, hey, you're representing the Dodgers when you're outside of this clubhouse, outside of this organization, you're representing us. So we need to cut it with these antics. You need to be more professional, be more mature. How is he going to do that? And will that work? Will we see a more tamed Puig this year?
Well, I think maybe I'm wrong about this, but I've never seen Don Mattingly as a guy that really likes to get in a guy's face a whole lot. And I honestly, and the other thing is I don't see a lot of guys in this clubhouse that like to, get in a guy's face and say, hey, cut it out. We're playing baseball here. We don't need you to be goofing off. This is our livelihood. We're trying to win a World Series championship, and you're holding us back. Because of that, it definitely could affect them in terms of maybe what we saw in Boston 2 years ago, where they had the whole thing of drinking in the clubhouse and just they weren't a team. And while, like I said before, this team is loaded with talent, if they can't put together, the little things such as team chemistry, where's the motivation to play well going to come from, other than the fact that they just have talent? Well, you can't win every game on talent alone, because in the end,
Herb Brooks,
you can't win games on talent. Exactly. In the end, you're still playing Major League Baseball, and every single team has 25 professional baseball players on their roster. Mm-hmm. And obviously, we're never going to see a team go 162-0. So obviously, talent doesn't just win you games. You have to show up, and if there's no motivation to do it, can you find a way to still win the game? That's the question mark right now. Will Yasiel Puig bring this team down?
I mean, you talk about we're not going to see a team go 162-0. Some of the best teams are teams that still lose 71 or so games. I mean, if that doesn't prove it to you, and I don't know what does. Great teams still lose that many games. So you got to be professional. You got to have what separates you from these other teams. And that should be professionalism, seen both in the clubhouse and outside of the clubhouse. How you represent your team on the field and off the field. And that goes for every league. So what are you going to do? You got to go out there. You got to win. You got to prove to them that, this is our division to win. We're going to be professional on and off the field, win or lose.
I mean, they were able to put it together last year. They started off the year very, very rough. And you almost saw the Mike Trout effect with Yasiel Puig coming up right in the middle of the season, where they just turned it on. And if they can do that again, that's definitely going to be important for them. 2 years ago, they went 86 and 86, or 86 and 76, excuse me, for second place in the division. Last year, bumped it up 92 and 70, first in the division, making a playoff appearance. This year, Chad, what are you kind of seeing as the end result for them?
I see just one day where the pitcher doesn't have a full night's sleep and they go 91 and 71. Simple as that.
I don't know how to respond to that, Chad. Oh, goodness. I still see them as a playoff team. But it may surprise you that I don't see them getting 90 wins, considering the fact that they do have, a two-time Cy Young Award winner in Clayton Kershaw, the fact that they have a one-time Cy Young Award winner in Zach Greinke, and excuse me, and just riddled with talent overall. It may surprise you, but I have them going 89 and 73, and that is actually tied for first place with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Chad, let's go ahead and review the division, break it down from 5-1. Where are you seeing this go?
Last place, see the Giants finishing. I just don't see them having all the pieces to put it together. See them finishing 74 and 88. Fourth place, Rockies. Up and coming. Again, they're on the rise, whereas the Giants are on the decline. Rockies have the pieces. They're just young pieces. I don't see them fitting together just yet. 77-85 for fourth place. Padres putting it together, making it just over the 500 mark for third place at 83-79. D-backs making a strong push for that number one spot in the NL West, going 86 and 76, finishing second though, while the Dodgers 91 and 71 taking the crown for the NL West.
I see a lot of similarities there as well. I have the Giants going 72 and 90, good for fifth in the division. The Rockies going fourth, 74 and 88. Like you said, they're a team that could be on the rise. Maybe not this year, but in the next couple of years. San Diego Padres finishing third. I have them at the 81, 500 mark. And then tied for first, I have the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers going 89 and 73. And since I know you're going to ask, Chad, I'll let you know. I do have the Diamondbacks winning this division based on the tiebreaker, going through whatever those different marks are. I believe head-to-head is the number one. I have the Diamondbacks just sneaking away with the division crown. So, Chad, we're moving on to our MVP award for the division. Where are you seeing this one go?
It came down to two people for me. Catcher Buster Posey for the Giants and outfielder Mark Trumbo for Arizona. I think it's a toss-up. Buster Posey, both of them have been consistently productive. Buster Posey, I feel, has that extra something, that intangible, that if I had to pick between the two, I would have to lean towards Buster Posey and give him the MVP award.
I had two guys as well. In the end, I've said this in the past, it's so important to me to have your team make the playoffs. And one of the guys I did include was Buster Posey of the San Francisco Giants. But if I have him finishing in last place, clearly he didn't do enough to get this team, into the playoffs. In the end, it's not based on just one player having to do it by themselves, but I just struggle giving it to a guy that is going, especially on a team that's going to finish in last place in my mind. So the other guy I look at is first baseman Paul Goldschmidt of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I believe he led the league in the National League in RBIs last year. He was at least top two. And I see another big year for him. 2 years ago, he had his rookie opportunity to come in and play, and he did enough where he showed that his value was to stay around for as long as possible, and he took a huge step last year into having one of the best years for offensive players in the National League. I see him making another push next year and doing that much better. So I have him being my MVP of the NL West. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Cy Young Award. Chad, I'm looking at this, and it's hard to ignore a guy like Clayton Kershaw.
I mean, he's just the two words describe him best: consistent and dominant. He is consistently dominant in not only the NL West, but the whole league overall. And you can't, if that's the case, you can't ignore that. You don't see that often. You don't see that often. It came down to two people for me: Clayton Kershaw for the Dodgers, and actually Josh Johnson for the Padres. I don't know what it is, but I feel like this could be, I don't want to say a fluke season, but he will be that Cinderella story per se. It's not going to be, oh, Bryce Harper's rookie season where everyone anticipated it. This is a low-key thing. People may have it on their radar, but I think he'll have a really solid season. You'll see the former Josh Johnson show up in San Diego. But when it comes down to it, the consistency and dominance that Clayton Kershaw shows is unmatched, and I see him taking this.
I actually had the same two names on, with this award. Hard to ignore a guy like you said that is as consistently dominant, and that dominance has been shown by the fact that he's walked away with 2 Cy Young awards in the last 3 seasons. But I really like Josh Johnson. He reminds me a little bit of a guy that we saw just north of San Diego in the same state. We go to Oakland. How about Bartolo Colon last year? A veteran guy who's under the radar, not expected to be as good as he was. And Bartolo Colon put together over 15 wins last year. I see Josh Johnson being able to do the same thing in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. That will definitely be an advantage for him because he just didn't seem to have the tools that he needed last year in Toronto. Well, he's going to pick him back up this year. Now, let's go ahead and jump to the postseason. This is where we're going to get down and dirty, Chad. We're going to start in the American League. We're simply just going to break down what seeds we have for each team, and then we'll move on to the NL and break down the seeds for that one.
For my AL team, number 1 seed, Oakland A's, 95-67. Number 2, Detroit Tigers, 93-69. The 3rd seed, Boston Red Sox, 89-73. My first wild card is the Texas Rangers at 92-70, and the Tampa Bay Rays with my second wild card, 89-73.
I have the same 5 teams, but we're gonna switch it up a little bit. I have the A's finishing at the number 1 spot as well, 95-67. But instead of your Red Sox winning division, I have the Tampa Bay Rays going 93-69. That's the 2nd seed. The Tigers finish in 3rd, 91-71. And then we'll have 2 teams with the same record for the wild card, Red Sox and Rangers, 89-73 for both of them. In the end, though, I have the Red Sox gaining that home field advantage for the wild card game. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the NL. Where are you seeing these ones go, Chad?
The number 1 seed, I see the Atlanta Braves with 95-67. Dodgers finished being the 2nd seed, 91-71. You go to the 3rd seed, Cincinnati Reds, 90-72. First wild card, St. Louis Cardinals at 89-73. And rounding it off, second wild card, Arizona Diamondbacks, 86-76.
Well, I have the Atlanta Braves also finishing number 1, and believe it or not, with the exact same record, 95-67. I think you're looking off my stuff, Chad. I have the Cardinals finishing 2nd, winning division instead of the Reds, 92-70, and then the Diamondbacks being the surprise team in this group, 89-72 as the 3rd seed, and we'll see a Reds versus Dodgers matchup in the wild card game. Reds getting the first wild card seed, 90-72. Dodgers going 89-73. So, Chad, let's talk about these wild card games. We'll talk about let's kind of see where do you see these ones going. Let's go ahead and start with your AL matchup. You had Texas versus Tampa Bay. What do you see in this one?
I mean, it's coming down to one game. The pitchers I'm expecting probably to face off would probably be Yu Darvish against David Price. And the offense, when I look at both of them, I see Texas having the edge. I think Yu Darvish is David Price is good. Don't get me wrong. I think Darvish, given the matchups with Tampa's offense, will be more dominant against the Tampa Bay offense, and the offense for Texas will hurt David Price more. And as a result, I see Tampa losing to Texas in the wild card game.
Well, I have Boston versus Texas in mind, and I think home field advantage is going to be huge for this one. I had them finishing with the exact same record in the regular season, but I see that home field advantage going to Boston being so huge for them because Fenway Park, that atmosphere during the playoffs, it's hard to match it. They're going to help their team get to the next round. I have Boston winning this one. I really like the season that, or I expect Leicester to have a really big year. Leicester versus Darvish, kind of a wash in that one in my mind. But I see Boston's offense just being too much to handle for the Texas Rangers. Now let's go and move on to our National League game, Chad. You have the Cardinals versus the Diamondbacks. What kind of things are you expecting to see with this one?
I mean, it's St. Louis, and they're back in the playoffs. It's kind of like what we talked about in our March Madness podcast of Jim Boeheim in the NCAA tournament, Mike Krzyzewski in the NCAA tournament. They're where they feel comfortable, back in the playoffs, and they do their thing with like clockwork. And as a result, I see them beating Arizona. Arizona had a great run; they had a good season. However, St. Louis has more experience in the postseason, and they know what it takes. They have the weapons to do what it takes. They aren't that far removed from winning the World Series, so I see them taking it from Arizona.
Well, we'll go ahead and look at my wild card game in the National League. I have the Dodgers versus the Reds. Reds have home field advantage in this one, but I like you talked about with the Texas-Tampa game, it's all about that pitching matchup. That is going to be huge for this one. And I don't see anyone on the Reds that can match the talent level that Clayton Kershaw is going to bring to this one. In a one-game playoff, if I had to pick any pitcher in the National League, I'm taking Clayton Kershaw, and that is going to be the difference in this game. I have the Dodgers beating the Reds, and unfortunately sending the Reds home without a series win in the playoffs once again. Now we're moving on to our division series, Chad. Starting the AL, we have two different series to break down. So why don't you go ahead and start with your one seed Oakland A's versus your wild card team Texas Rangers.
I think it's going to be a close series. I think Oakland's going to end up winning it in 6 games, and a huge reason for that is the strength of their bullpen. Yeah, because their starters, they just lost Jared Parker to seemingly Tommy John surgery is what it looks like he's going to be having, his second Tommy John surgery. And Texas is good. They have a great offense, and they have good pitching. But I feel like Oakland is they're gonna be magical somehow. They're going to find a way to defeat Texas. You know, once you're past Darvish, this Texas starting rotation really isn't anything special. It's Darvish and then a bunch of number 3 starters. And they aren't dominant, and Oakland has the ability to take advantage of it offensively. And once it gets to the bullpen, you have to go through Jim Johnson, you have to go through Luke Gregerson, Aaron Cook. Solid bullpen. We talked about it when we went over the AL West, how bullpen was their concentrated area of improvement. So I see them defeating Texas in 6 games. Going over to Detroit and Boston, I think Detroit made some solid moves. They lost Prince Fielder, however, but they gained Ian Kinsler. And it looks like they may have lost Iglesias for the first half of the season. But that's just the first half. There's a whole another half. Another 81 games left in the season, and they're still going to have those players. I see them beating Boston in 7 games. It's going to be a tightly fought match with Detroit having some luck on their side and being able to beat Boston in 7 games.
Well, hopefully Torrey Hunter has a chance to grab that grand slam ball by David Ortiz again. Hopefully he catches that one, and it sounds like you're thinking maybe he will. In mine, I have Oakland against Boston, my number 1 versus the wild card winner. And, it sounds crazy potentially, but I think Oakland's got some magic this year. they're finally going to get out of the first round of the playoffs because they're not going to see the Tigers. I'm sure they're going to be absolutely thrilled about that in this case with Boston. I have them winning in 5 games. That bullpen is just scary good, and I don't think you're going to see the strength of Boston's bullpen enough because they're not going to because they're going to be down too early to really have the power of their bullpen really show. And then you look at the other one, Tampa Bay versus Detroit. This is going to be possibly one of the most exciting series in terms of the playoffs in my mind. And I actually have Tampa Bay defeating Detroit in 7 games. That home field advantage, I think, is going to be a factor. And because I think Price is going to be around for the entire year, that'll be huge for them. Will Myers is going to break out. And once again, Detroit, in a way, kind of chokes in the playoffs, unable to kind of wrap things up and take a team and have a team that's so full of talent really move on into getting a World Series ring. Now let's go ahead and move on to the NL. Chad, go ahead and break down your 2 matchups.
The first matchup I have is Atlanta and St. Louis, and I said St. Louis is back to a location where they're comfortable. They're in the playoffs. But having said that, I'm going to do a whole psych on you because I think Atlanta's going to win. I think they're going to beat them in 6 games because they have a better offense. They have Freddie Freeman. They have Alderton Simmons. They have Jason Hayward. They lost Brian McCann, but they have Evan Gattis, who has proven to be a good contributor. The former janitor turned baseball pro. Then you go to their rotation. They lost Tim Hudson, but they still have Julio Teheran, who just signed a new deal. They have Craig Kimbrell. They have these solid pieces in key locations. They have a star for every location, and you can't say that about the Cardinals. They don't have a star in every position or every aspect of the game, and I think because of that, they're going to falter. It's going to be a closely fought match, but in the end, I think Atlanta's going to take it. The second matchup I have is actually your wild card game, the Dodgers and the Reds. Like I said about Texas, all they have is one starter. You have to get past Clayton Kershaw, and once you get past him, it's not easy sailing, but it's tolerable. You can find those holes. You can find ways to beat them. For Clayton Kershaw, though, you have to be studying overnight. You got to be cramming. You got to be ahead of him in a sense. You got to be one step ahead of him because that's how dominant he is. I think the Dodgers will win in 7 games because I think you can spot the Dodgers 1 game, and that's what's going to hurt the Reds. You're going to spot them the Clayton Kershaw game because I don't see them being able to overcome Clayton Kershaw. And from that, it's going to be even give and take. In the end, the Dodgers beating the Reds in 7 games.
With mine, I have actually your National League wild card game, St. Louis and Arizona. I have the same result as well. I have St. Louis beating Arizona. The magic kind of to the Arizona Diamondbacks season will end here. I have it at just 5 games. I just think St. Louis has enough power on this roster where they can get through this without too much difficulty. Yes, they have some big losses when you talk about Mujica, Carpenter, Beltran, but they have so much talent in their minor leagues that we could see a guy like how Shelby Miller came up in the middle of the season last year and looked really, really good. And we may see that once again happen with St. Louis, and they'll have enough where they can get past Arizona. And then the other one I have, Atlanta versus the Dodgers. My number 1 seed versus my wild card game champion. Atlanta is just so good, as you said. When you talked about them against St. Louis, it's just kind of the same thing with the Dodgers. The loss of Medlin, believe me, will definitely hurt. The loss of Tim Hudson will definitely hurt. The loss of Brian McCann will definitely hurt at the beginning of the season. They're going to figure out their way of getting through the season. They're going to put together what they need. They may make some key trade deadline moves even to help out that rotation. But, I mean, if you give the ball to Craig Kimbrell, it's over. And I think they're going to be able to do that against the Dodgers. I have Atlanta winning in 6 and moving on to the championship series. And that's exactly where we're going next, Chad. We're moving on to the championship series. Let's go ahead and start with your American League Championship Series.
I think it's going to be the Oakland A's going up against the Detroit Tigers. I see it going 7 games. Ultimately, Oakland's bullpen continues to show its dominance and outlasts Detroit, winning in 7 games.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that because Detroit has ousted the A's the last 2 years in the playoffs. Finally, it looks like Billy Beane is going to get what he wants and get a chance in the World Series. That's where you're going with this. I don't see them having that same luck playing against the Rays. While Oakland does have a very, very great bullpen, their starting pitching may not be enough to handle the hitters that they're going to see against Tampa Bay. We talk about Will Myers, Evan Longoria, Desmond Jennings. James Loney could have a really nice year for them at first base. Ben Zobrist. I mean, I could keep going. It's just they have some really nice pieces, and their pitching staff is still strong enough. Even if you get past David Price, we're still looking at a strong enough pitching staff that I think they have the advantage over Oakland. I see it going 7 games, but Tampa Bay is going to go ahead and take this one home. Now let's move on to the National League. Chad, where do you see this championship series going?
I think the fans of the Georgia Peach State, Georgia, I think they're gonna be hosting some World Series games there. So Braves fans better get ready because I see Atlanta beating the Cardinals and beating the Dodgers. Beating the Dodgers in 5 games. I see, again, them probably losing to Clayton Kershaw, but then asserting some authority to the Dodgers and beating them in the remainder of the games.
I also have Atlanta moving on to the World Series. I have them beating St. Louis rather than the Dodgers. Just too much talent up and down this roster. I think the losses for St. Louis will catch up to them here. They just that lack in my mind of a dominant number one because based on what I've seen from Adam Wainwright, he's consistent all the time, and I think that's going to help Atlanta steal a couple of wins, a win or two from the Adam Wainwright games. If you get past that, I think they can take care of business against guys like Miller and Waka. I have Atlanta going in 6 into the World Series. Like you, I believe that the Georgia Peach State will be hosting some games in the World Series. So it's time for some World Series. Chad, you have the Braves versus Oakland. We're going across the entire country here. Time zone might be a factor here. What's your prediction?
Well, fans of Atlanta, you can celebrate. Not only because you may be getting Jadeveon Clowney with the NFL draft or whatever your Falcons may be doing, but you're not celebrating that. You're celebrating a World Series title for Atlanta. Atlanta will take home the World Series in 6 games, defeating the Oakland A's.
Well, unfortunately for Billy Beane, he has still not won the last game of the season, your prediction. Mm-hmm. And we may need another Moneyball movie because of that. I have Tampa Bay against Atlanta in my World Series. And just so you guys are aware, I have had Tampa Bay playing in 7 games in both the Division Series and the Championship Series. So why not have 7 games in the World Series? Let's go 7 games down to the wire.
Can we have 8? Can we have 8 games or 9?
Unfortunately, it's not a rule, Chad. We're going to stick with 7. Tampa Bay defeating the Atlanta Braves in the World Series. The team that was known for years as just the underside of every other team in the league, just getting absolutely destroyed year in and year out, will walk away with a World Series championship, I believe, as their 15th anniversary to the making of this team. And it's time to celebrate in Florida. Maybe some fans will actually show up to those games. because they clearly have an issue with attendance there. But Tampa Bay, you can celebrate this one as, in my mind, you are walking home with a World Series championship. Chad, we're going to break down some awards now. We're going to break down 3 awards for you guys. We're going to start with MVP, move on to Cy Young, and just for fun, we're going to add Manager of the Year. We're going to add a little something extra for you guys. So, Chad, take it away with your AL MVP.
Well, my AL MVP should be no shock to anyone because he's kind of a big deal when it comes to MVPs. He's kind of a repeat offender. We're going to go to Detroit and go tap Miguel Cabrera on the shoulder and say, hey, like, we've heard you're kind of good, so we're going to give you this MVP again. Would you be interested in taking it?
You know, it's hard to argue with a guy that, you know, barely played in I believe it was August last year. You know, he sat out with injuries and still won MVP because he can do everything offensively, other than, I guess, steal a base. But you shouldn't.
We haven't seen that in years.
You know what? We're not asking him to do that. But when you can almost rely on a guy without even breaking a sweat to hit 310, hit 40 to 45 home runs, and give you 130 to 150 RBIs in a season, I would say it's a pretty good player. And it kind of seems what Miguel Cabrera can do for the Tigers this year. Like I said, I have Miguel Cabrera also bring home the AL MVP for the 3rd straight season.
I mean, the production that he's doing, I can't even do that on any baseball games on rookie level. So I can't imagine him doing this in real life on such consistent production. But going to the NL, I'm going to do a little magic here. I haven't mentioned him this whole in any of our podcasts, and I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat, do a whole peekaboo thing. You know, NL MVP, we're going to go to Cincinnati. I'm going to do Joey Votto. I think his...
Chad, I believe you picked Matt Holliday for your NL Central MVP. I'm not sure I can allow this, but go ahead.
Well, you're going to allow it because I'm going to continue saying it. Joey Votto will win it. Matt Holliday could finish second. Who knows? But I think Joey Votto's knee will be healthy enough to increase his power production. And his batting average has always been there. So if he can get the guys on base in front of him and his power returns, I see him putting up not 40 homers like he was close to when he won the MVP before, but a respectable amount to get him back within reach or on the top of the list, and then him being a steal of a choice, him snagging the award, not outright winning it like Miguel Cabrera.
I'm going into the NL East for mine. Jason Hayward, you know, when he came up into the majors a few years ago, he was considered to be one of the big futures of baseball, and I think you're going to see that come together this year. You know, yes, he may have all the pressure in the world on him because he's considered to be the star of this Atlanta Braves team, but he's a 5-tool guy. He can steal bases. He can hit for power. He can hit for contact. He can field for you. You know, he can do everything, and I think that's going to be the difference. You saw a guy like Andrew McCutchen who could do everything win the award last year. Well, I don't see the Pirates, you know, being in contention, so that eliminates him from the discussion. So let's go with another guy who can do everything, Jason Hayward for Atlanta, winning the MVP award, bringing the MVP back to Atlanta, which hasn't happened since Chipper Jones in the 90s. Now we're going to move ahead to the Cy Young Award, Chad. AL, what do you think?
Most people might go to Detroit for this award because they have some good pitchers in Scherzer and Justin Verlander. But I'm not feeling that. I'm going to go to the AL West, and I'm going to give it to Felix Hernandez. I think this improved offense will increase his win total, and he won't be that 13-12 pitcher. I think he could get 16 to 18 wins, possibly up in the higher teens number of wins. And with his stats that he already has, before that, there's no way that he shouldn't at least be at the top of the ballot for the AL Cy Young. But for me, he's a winner in my eyes.
Well, I'm going to do what you expect everyone to do and go to Detroit. Scherzer, he won it last year. As I believe you once put it, Verlander said that, hey, I won it in 2012. I'm going to let you win it this year, or maybe it was 2011. He says, I'm going to let you win it this year. It's your turn. You can have it. And then Scherzer's going to say, hey, you know what? You can have it back. Go to Justin Verlander this year. He's going to have a bounce-back year. In the end, I don't know if you can necessarily say he had a bad year last year. It just wasn't a Justin Verlander kind of year. So I think he's going to have a Justin Verlander kind of year. And you'll see it kind of be up in the air between Scherzer, Verlander, and Hernandez. But in the end, Verlander is going to be that dominant of a pitcher once again for the Tigers.
So Detroit's going to be teaching the city of Detroit that sharing is caring, I believe, now.
That's the way I like to see it, Chad. I like that positive attitude there. Now, let's move on to the National League, Chad. And, we talked before, can't ignore him, Clayton Kershaw. I got Clayton Kershaw going with the NL Cy Young.
That's who I have as well. I think he's on his own level in terms of National League pitchers. Matt Latos is good. He's been doing great with Cincinnati. He is doing well with San Diego, but he's not on that level yet. Clayton Kershaw is so much higher than everyone else. I mean, he has his own level. You have to get to his level. You got to get on his level, and there's no pitchers right now that are close to his level.
At least not in the National League. I would definitely agree with that. You put him in the mix in the American League, we could have a really, really fun race. Talking about Felix Hernandez, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, and then even moving into the AL East, we talk about David Price. That could be a really exciting race. But like you said, the National League, there's really no one that matches the ability that Clayton Kershaw has. The big lefty's going to go ahead and pick up a third Cy Young Award in this one. So let's go ahead and move on to Manager of the Year, Chad. Why don't you go ahead and break down both of them for me? Just where are you seeing this one go?
For me, what it comes down to is who's gotten their team the farthest. That's why I have in the AL, Bob Melvin for the Oakland A's, and in the National League, Freddie Gonzalez of the Atlanta Braves.
I went a different direction. Well, I definitely see that as a good point to make for teams. Where how far they go. The fact is, these awards are not based upon postseason; they're based on regular season. So I'm kind of looking at teams that maybe aren't expected to be as good as they are. So in the AL, I went with Ned Yost of Kansas City because I just think they're on the rise, and he's going to have them making a step over 500 and really being a possible contender in the next couple of years for the Royals. With the National League, I'm going into Arizona. Surprise victory in the NL West for the Diamondbacks. This one's going to Kirk Gibson. He's going to go ahead and win the award. Bring it to Arizona. He was a great player in his day. It's time for him to be a great manager as well. And I see Kirk Gibson going and take this one. Well, everyone, we want to thank you for listening to us really just kind of ramble on for 6 podcasts about what we're expecting with this baseball season. Hopefully you can stick around and listen to our next podcast as we may break down just about anything. Stay tuned with us. Like us on Facebook. It's a Chad and Sam Sports Hour. Hour spelled out, and it's the and sign. Follow us on Twitter at Sam Chad Sports Hour. And then our blog is ChadandSamSportsHR.wordpress.com. Be sure to contact us with your thoughts on how you think we did breaking down the upcoming baseball season, and let us know about anything else that you think that maybe we need to talk about, or if you just have an opinion on something. We'd love to hear from you guys. For Chad Trent, I'm Sam Mullen. Once again, thanks for listening, and hope you guys have a great night.